Okay, what's up everyone? Before I get started with this video, which will be short, it won't be too long, I want to go over a couple stories. I do want to mention that definitely check out my blog at www.blackintellectual.com. Sign up for my email list. There's some information that I share only with my subscribers that I don't post on the main blog and I don't make a YouTube video about. So definitely check that out. And I'm going to be continuing to post what I think I'm going to do because of time constraints. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start posting more short, like really short videos. Like I'm shooting for like under 10 minutes each video, maybe under 15 minutes, and that just allows me to churn out more videos without having to do as much prep work. Because when I first got started, on YouTube, I was trying to do the whole thing where I was, covering 3, 4, 5 different stories at once, and the show would be about an hour, 2 hours long. And I'm not saying I'm not going to do that in the future, but time wise, I'm a lot more limited now. So what you're going to be seeing in the future is a lot more shorter videos. So this video, for instance, isn't going to be considered an episode per se. I'm going to save the episodes for the longer, like when I actually do get the time to do longer videos that are like an hour plus, an hour to 2 hours. Those are going to be like the official, like, Black Intellectual episodes, and sometimes I might live stream, sometimes I might not, and those are also going to include the interviews as well. So for future interviews that I do, but so I just wanted to get that out there because I know I've been off and on a lot with my videos. And then another reason why you should check out blackintellectual.com is because a lot of times I will write an article, and you might even see it posted on Twitter occasionally, these articles that I write. A lot of times I'll write an article that I won't actually do a video about, because it kind of just depends on what mood I'm in at the time, and just how I'm feeling at the time about that particular story. Sometimes I don't always want to do a video about a story. So, and that's the beauty of working on multiple mediums. Sometimes I might do YouTube, sometimes I might do my blog, because I don't want to neglect my blog either. So that's that. I wanted to get that out of the way, do some basic house cleaning before I got started. So the two stories that I want to talk about today are the stories that I'm sure you guys have heard of more stories and more incidents of black people having the police called on them by these random ass white folks. One story was the story of Erica Walker, and I want to say that was in Memphis, Tennessee. And then the other story was a story of two what it the way the article, or the way the story has been told, it's told in terms of like two young black boys, ages 17 and 12, 12 years old, having the police called on them. But I want to say their mother was with them too. It sounds like it was one of those situations where the two boys were actually walking, doing the walking, and they were actually going door to door delivering newspapers, and their mother was probably just trailing them in the car. That's the way it sounds like. So the first story I want to talk about is the story of the Memphis, Tennessee. This white manager named Erica Walker called the police on a black man because he was wearing socks in the pool. The community apartment complex pool that not all apartment complexes, but most apartment complexes have. That's it. That's really the gist of the story. I mean, there's not really much else to tell. Now, thankfully, the woman who was with this particular gentleman, this particular black man, this black male, she had the foresight to start recording on Facebook. So she got on Facebook Live, and she, got the woman's name and had her whole picture all over the internet. She made her famous, basically. And unfortunately, that's what we have to do now, because we don't really live in a country that's going to take our side for anything. And even a lot of times, even if you do have camera footage, this society still might not take your side. But the camera footage at least makes it so that the oppressors in this case, the colonizers in this case, can't come around after the fact and claim, you're making things up, or they didn't do what you're saying they did. So you always have to record these engagements, family, always. And if you don't record the incident as it's happening, definitely try to get, a recording of some sort after the fact. So they were the only black people at the pool. So surprise, surprise. And the woman who was with the black male, if you watch the Facebook video, she's showing everyone else in the pool. She's showing the fact that you had several white males in the pool who had on hats. They had on clothing. But apparently that wasn't an issue. It's only an issue because of a black male, and it could have been a black female. I'm not saying that this happened because it was a guy doing it, but it was just she just saw a black family, a black couple, whatever the case may be, in the pool, and she called the police on them for something completely benign. Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing this story up is because it came out recently that she was fired. So that's definitely good news. I'm not one of these people who thinks that, because I know some people on the left, some liberals, get upset because they don't think certain types of racism should be held accountable. There's this mindset among certain people, definitely on the right. I mean, that's a given, but even on the left, there's this mindset that people are allowed to be racist, so, which is not technically false. And so because of that, they shouldn't be held accountable. And people don't necessarily say that per se on the left, but it's implied. Because people get really kind of in their feelings a little bit about racists being fired from their jobs because they do things racist. They do racist things. And we're in an age right now of people have cameras everywhere. People have social media accounts. If you're doing blatantly racist things, you have to take into account that you might be exposed. And so if you're on the job, and it reminds me of that situation in New York, where I can't remember the guy's name, but the white male. Now this was a much more extreme situation because he was just being flagrant. Like, he was like literally getting up in people's faces, not caring that he was being recorded. Telling people that he was going to call ICE on them and whatnot. And so that was a worse situation in many ways because he had a history of doing things like that. And he just finally got to the point where society had enough of him, and so he was held accountable after the fact. But this was a much weaker situation, but the impact is always potentially the same. And what I mean by that is people are doing this knowing how the relationship is between law enforcement and the black community. So we cannot view these incidents as harmless, victimless situations. I mean, you could literally. There was another story, and I'm not even covering this story, but you could literally get people killed doing this, and they know this. Okay, this is not even new. They've been doing this, to black people for years. It's just that people are now able to record these incidents and in real time upload those incidents onto social media, and these stories go viral. So people are now seeing how commonplace this actually is. But I was saying a second ago, you had two black boys. I didn't write down the city, so I'm not sure what the city is off the top of my head. But you had two black boys who were actually pulled over and arrested. There are pictures of them in handcuffs sitting on the ground because they had the police called on them by some unnamed white person. No, so a lot of times I've noticed when the white people are getting exposed, it's usually when the black people are proactively engaging with them and challenging them. Okay, a lot of times I notice that if you don't, this is why getting that camera footage and actually interacting with these people is not always a bad thing, as long as you're not being extra and you're not giving them a reason to play the victim. You know what I'm saying? But that's why actually recording these incidents and getting information from these people is necessary, because a lot of times the people who are calling the cops on black people, the police aren't telling you who these people are. These people are largely being protected. As far as I know, I could be wrong about this, but as far as I know, the person who called the police on Tamir Rice, I don't even know if that person's been identified. You know, if that person has actually been identified, let me know. Put that in the chat or something like that, or in the comment section. But that's how Tamir Rice got killed. Somebody called the police on him. You know, like, this stuff is deadly. This stuff is extremely deadly. So, luckily, she's been held accountable, and hopefully, you know, the next job she gets, wherever that is and whatever that is she's doing, hopefully she'll think twice about doing that in the future. So then the other story that I wanted to mention, that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is the story of the two black boys, like I said, ages 17 and 12, who are delivering newspapers in Upper Arlington, Ohio. Now, again, luckily this didn't end violently. They weren't harmed in any sort of way. But look at the ages here. 12 years old and 17 years old. Okay, and I saw a video where they actually, I think it was like an ABC video, where they played the recording of the woman who, or somehow they got a hold of the woman who called the police. As far as I know, they still didn't identify her, or maybe I just read the article too quickly. But her name is really honestly irrelevant, to be perfectly honest with you. And she was basically white-splaining as to why she called the cops on these two children, saying that she saw them walking away from the house with nothing in their hands. Again, that's no reason to call the cops. You know, you don't even have all of the information, right? You don't even have all of the information, and you're calling the cops on people, on black people. You know, it's just, and again, there's not really more to tell about this story other than the cop came. They, you know, on the ABC video, the local ABC video that I saw, they said the cops quickly realized that, okay, this is nothing serious. These kids were delivering newspapers, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Okay, but it's yet another incident from at this point, dozens, because I mean, think about the incidents that we don't know about. So we've heard at least over a dozen, I wouldn't say since April or February, March, April, around that time, around like, you know, end of winter, beginning of spring. This has to be, we've now heard over a dozen of these types of stories, and these are only the stories that are going viral. These are only the stories where, you know, the local news are actually talking about this stuff. This stuff is happening all over the country every day. Okay, countless people. And you never know, some of these stories might be ending fatally. You know, we don't know. So, Newsweek ran a story, this past, about a month ago. Well, maybe about 3 weeks ago, because it says June 22nd. So they ran a story titled "Police Killings Are Damaging Black America's Mental Health," study says. And I'm not going to break down the study. I just want to mention that because I think everybody should check out that article, read that article, and just read a little bit of that study, because that study, that the article itself is purely just about police killings. And this is another article I saw trending, not trending per se, but I saw somebody retweeted on Twitter, and it's just a story that I never really got around to talking about, because I see so many of these types of articles. But this article is purely just in reference to police killings. Okay, think about what studies would show if you included just random acts of racism and discrimination that millions of black people face all the time. Okay, so definitely check out that article. Like I said, police killings are damaging Black America's mental health, study says. This is why it's important to have a detox. I've mentioned that in several videos. Whatever you do, whatever, meditation, working out, going to the gym, yoga, I don't know, reading, writing, whatever you do something. Okay, don't let this stuff destroy your mind. Okay, whether you are coming from it from the perspective of a victim, or whether you're coming at it from the perspective of a content creator like myself. Don't let this stuff get to you, because it will. Whether you're a victim or you're a commentator, after a while this stuff will get to you, and that's not healthy. Okay, but that just kind of just shows you the type of stuff that we deal with in this country on a consistent basis. So I made a video titled White Fragility, Social Dominance Theory, and Black Population Control. If you haven't seen that video yet, definitely go and check that video out now. Okay, because I really break down a lot of the same things, and that was in reference to the Yale incident and the Waffle House incidents. And I made that video back in May, so not much, really nothing has changed since then. And I don't really see anything changing in the near future. So we're going to keep talking about these stories because they need to be talked about. And people are now beginning to see how commonplace these passive-aggressive microaggressions, these very deadly microaggressions from many people in the white community, how commonplace this stuff is. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. So definitely check out my blog, like I said earlier, at blackandintellectual.com. Watch some of my older YouTube videos and be on the lookout for the next video I do.